July, the 16th of July, normal ordinary council meeting. I'll read the civic affirmation. We gather today to duly and faithfully carry out our duties to the best of our judgment and ability, for the advancement of this district and the benefit of all of our community and fellow citizens. The Coorong District Council members acknowledge and pay respect to the traditional custodians of the land and waters, the Ngarrindjeri people, whose ancestral lands are on which we meet today. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationship of Aboriginal people to country and pay our respects to elders past and present. We also extend that respect to all First Nations people. Thank you, everyone. Welcome. Item 1 is apologies, and I have an apology from Councillor Bland. Number 2 is acknowledgements, and we have 3. Councillor Arthur, could you just talk about Albert Webb, please?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. It is regretted on behalf of the council acknowledging the passing of Albert Webb. Albert was a great member of the Tintinara community and was involved in sports within the community as a player and an administrator. Albert was also past chairman of the Canalpin Downs Council from the 4th of July 1980 until the 10th of February 1982. He was a councillor for the Richards Ward from July the 8th, 1974 until October the 4th, 1985, a fair skin. He was also the chairman of the Section 41 Committee of the Development Board, which was part of the a board that did a lot of the walking trails through Tintinara, and he was one of the instigators in the men's shed. The whole community, and this goes right down to Tatiara, where he was also the chairman of the league for bowls. But we're all saddened by Albie's loss, and may he rest in peace.
Yeah. Thank you. The second person I'd like to acknowledge is Norm Patterson of Cook Plains, who passed away about 10 days ago. And councillors know I'm a Cook Plains boy, really. Long-time resident of Cook Plains and a leader in the community, he was particularly a good football trainer, tennis, even table tennis. I can taking me up to the ANI Institute to play tennis against one of those Tail and Bend teams, of course. But Norm was very much a business leader too. Particularly, he was highly involved in establishing the Australian Fertiliser Services Association. There'd be no particular secret that, obviously he was the lead of Cook Plains Gypsum as a company and Patterson Bulk Transport in the district. Cook Plains and this greater area, and long involved in community activities. The other thing I might just mention is over 60 years of service to CFS, and we did get his medal to him before he passed. So I'd like to acknowledge Norm, and his funeral is this Friday. The third person acknowledged today is the very sad loss of Mark Scobie of Policeman's Point, the result of a farm accident. Mark and his family led the establishment of the on-farm water catchment for on-farm security in conjunction very much with Council's LAP program, and he continually showed interest, not only showed off that what he did, but to many other farmers, and talked about the costings and the site. Had many site visits for this water harvesting method, which probably helped solidify the cattle industry along the Coorong. Also very much valued volunteer of both the South Australian Ambulance Service and the CFS in his community. Councillor Peach, you want to add to that, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I'd like to move a formal motion of condolence on behalf of the council to the Scobie family and ask that we hold a minute's silence as a mark of respect for the contribution of Mark to his community and to the wider district. Mark was a gentleman. I had a fair bit to do with him through the CFS. He was a man that understood his landscape, he understood fire behaviour, and he knew what to do in very tight circumstances. Mark was somebody that was looked to for leadership, even when he wasn't in a leadership role. He was somebody that people gravitated to as a cool head who was able to do what needed to be done. So I'd like to move that motion.
Seconder. Over Councillor Coleman. All those in favour? Shall we stand for a minute's silence? Would that be appropriate? Okay, councillors, thank you. Number 3, declarations of conflicts of interest. Have any councillors got any conflicts of interest they wish to? Just now?
Mr Mayor, if I could just note, I'm not sure if this is a conflict, but if I could just note regarding the Country Health Connect Services update 10.3 that I am on that community committee that's mentioned in that report.
No, we don't.
We record it, but.
We'll record it, but we don't believe it affects you, councillor. It
Thank you.
was up to you actually whether it affects it. I don't. Anyone else? Okay, number 4, confirmation of the minutes, including the confidential minutes held on the 25th of June 2024. Someone move that way, please. O'Hara. Mover. Is there a seconder? Councillor Arthur. Either of you wish to speak? Anyone else got any questions around the minutes? Being none, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Number 5, adjourned business. Number 1, councillor Peach, Christmas banner decorations. So councillor Peach, since this is an adjourned motion, you will continue to speak, we understand, on the subject.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I would like to continue to support the motion as it currently stands. I understand that there may be some other developments in works for potential other solutions down the track. But in the meantime, I would like to see the Christmas decorations in use this year, and I think this is the best pathway forward for it. I would note that the advice received, proposal number 2, that the wording was changed in the motion. So the insurer's concern around delegation there is now a moot point. Mr Mayor, I think it's quite simple. I think we can get this done pretty easily, and I'll continue to support the motion.
Thank you. So I haven't got a seconder yet, Ashley, is it? You do. Councillor Roundtree was the seconder. Speak, councillor, to it as it reads.
No, I just support what Councillor Peach has said. I think we need to just move forward, and this was a good solution.
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Arthur.
Mr Mayor, can I just ask a question? The Christmas decorations are the ones that have been put up at the present moment, the wreaths that are put up for Christmas at Tintinara. What's happened to all the banners that that people supplied to the council some many years ago? They came down and disappeared. Does anyone know what happened to them?
Mr Mayor, may I provide an understanding?
An answer to the question.
Mr Mayor, I believe that they were removed from Tintinara and they're currently here in Tailem Bend somewhere. That's what I was told at the time. There are still 2 located in Tintinara, which are the 2 that went up this last Christmas.
Because they were supplied by the businesses, but were erected and removed by council staff.
Certainly, which I suppose shows the problem with the process. That 2 different groups are involved. Councillors, just as a piece of information to the public, in Canberra, when we were there last week before, can't remember, 2 weeks ago, we did come across a company in the commercial exhibition area of the local government thing, which does allow for banner poles to be erected by one person from the ground in a similar fashion to a flag. Still has a banner attached to it, and but at reasonable cost. I don't think the Director of Infrastructure has seen them in work before, so that may be an option in the future for a way of putting up banners that don't involve a cherry picker to erect them or to some other method. Okay, that's a piece of information. So, anyone else speaking for or against the motion? There being none, councillor, you'll close.
So closed.
So,
We're voting on the top one, are we? Not the alternative recommendation.
Correct. The continued motion.
The motion as it was before it was adjourned. Right? All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Carried. Councillor Arthur voting against the written councillors Peach, Roundtree, Qualman, O'Hara and Maiden voting for it. You vote for it. Still carried. Okay, councillors, thank you. Reports by members. Item 6. Mayor's report might be first. Colourful. Colourful thing. Let's have a quick look. Be fair to say there's some meetings going on around future Adelaide Freight Pass and the various politics around that. And as you know, earlier today we had a presentation from a party that wants to make rail transport into Adelaide quicker, I think would be the way I'd word that. So in that area there, I did attend briefly, or not did briefly, I did the whole meeting on the 18th of June for the Menangie Community Sports Ground meeting, which is a group of nearly all of the sports clubs in Menangie now that are considering how and why and what we could build a new function centre come sporting club rooms at Menangie. Basically on the footprint very close to the present football club rooms. The last thing, my report there around the week in Canberra, as you worked out, was not exactly a warm week. Also, if you're going to go to Parliament House, wear a belt that does not need have any steel on it, so you don't have to take it off every time. That would be my short advice. I got sick of that. So my take-home messages, councillors. The first one I've just mentioned is around banners. The second one is there's been a continual loud voice from local government around asking the federal government to return to a funding of 1% of its total budget. At the moment, it's at about 0.501 or something now. I suspect that the federal government has no particular intention of doing that. But was continue, I suppose, badgering, I suppose, in the local government conference around that. And finally, while the federal government are saying that the Roads to Recovery funding for the next 5 years has been doubled, we got news that week that the ratio of funding for rural South Australian councils that the next 5 years is not going to be anywhere near doubling. It's about a 47% increase instead of, and it appears that councils that received drought funding in the last 5 or 8 years or whatever have had their ratio lower than councils that didn't in this state. So nearly half the councils are receiving less. So we are going to probably do some work principally through Marylands, Riverlands, LGA around this and trying to understand if that was a South Australian only issue or an Australian government directive or whatever. So when people tell you you've had the money or money doubled for roads through this federal government, well, you can tell them all not quite. Given what we learned earlier today around a different funding stream, I'm at this stage reluctant to go out and make a noise about it until I fully understand why this is so. Any questions? Peach.
Mr. Mayor, I believe you may have a meeting coming up regarding transport. Are you able to share any light on that regarding the Dukes Highway?
Yes, I think we meet with the Minister of Transport, Mr. Koutsantonis, on that subject and others.
The date escapes me.
2 weeks' time. There you go. The meetings with ministers are starting to come thick and fast. Hopefully I'll finish seating. Yes, yeah. And that's the first time we've managed to get an audience with him. We did have a meeting there, yeah, with Mr. Whelan and others in a broader sense around issues in the area. I think it'd be fair to say on the Mallee Highway road junctions, looking at the director now, We're probably not going to get what we want, but we may get some of what we want.
We're still in discussion.
Through the chair, we're still in discussions with the project manager and DIT regarding some of those intersections, but you might get some, but not all.
Important thing that came out of that meeting is these roads have been funded under mostly a safety banner, not a pavement management banner. And so all the safety rails and that go up, and I know plenty of people in our community would rather have a better pavement, but you won't get any pavement improvement without the safety rails. Is that what you're asking about, councillor?
Indeed, thank you.
Anyone else? Appears there's no other council reports, so we can move on to number 7, petitions. We have none. 8, deputations. We have none. Number 9, public question time. We have none. 10.1. South Australian Regional Organisation of Councils nomination of representatives. So this is a process of nominating someone to go forward for selection.
I'll move that one, Mr. Chair.
You're moving the
Mayor,
council nominates me.
You,
Okay. The seconder, councillor Quam, are you the seconder? Is there any discussion from council around this? Meet 6 times a year. Thursday being the next one. For a 2-year term. Any other further discussion? Being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Number 2, Local Government Finance Authority, nomination of a representative. 2 options there. We can either receive a note report or councillors may
I'll move
wish.
that way, Mr. Mayor.
Now I've got councillor Roundtree's arm up.
Thank you.
She might want to do it. I don't know.
Well, I just want to recommend option 1 and nominate councillor Peach, if he's prepared to do it.
So moved councillor Roundtree. Is there a seconder? Councillor Maidman is the seconder. Councillor Roundtree, you want to speak to it?
I think the skills that councillor Peach has would be good to have on that committee, and it'd be useful for us. So that's why I would like to do it.
Lee, councillor Maidman?
I agree with councillor Roundtree. He's very good at finance. It'd be very detrimental for us not to have him on there, I think.
Okay. Simply a nomination to go forward for a selection.
Yeah.
I haven't asked him yet. I'm just letting everyone else praise him first. Councillor Peach, I suppose we better ask if you accept.
I'm keen to have a crack. I may not have the required CV, but I'm keen to put my name forward for it.
Certainly, so he's accepted. Anyone else? Is that the case? You'll close, councillor.
Closed.
So put the motion. No, it's option 1. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 3, Country Health Connect Services Update. The recommendation, councillors, that council receive and note the report. Someone prepared to move that way?
I have a couple of questions.
Got
before we do that.
questions?
Yeah.
Righto.
I think we need to do more than receive and note their report from, there needs an action item associated with this recommendation. In question 1, they talk about nurses coming back after their registration has expired, but they don't mention anything about coming back after retirement, which was the question. So I feel there's about 3 questions in there they didn't actually answer. The second one was they were asked what equipment was removed. They haven't answered or specified what equipment was removed. And number 3, they talk about the reduction of referrals, yet they haven't mentioned how many referrals per month occurred before January 24 when they removed the service. So they're giving us, I'm not surprised that referrals are down. They're giving us a number of what it looks like now after people have lost confidence in the service, but they haven't actually stated what it was before and where it is now. And I think we need to, why did local nurses choose not to renew their contracts? We only have nurses now coming from Murray Bridge or the Mallee, and I think the whole thing's disgraceful, and I'm not happy with that report at all. I just don't think it answered our questions, and it needs an action item. We have to go back or do more because I think it was a fob off. my
Mr.
personal view.
Councillor Peach, yes?
May I move a motion regarding this point in time?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to move that we write back to Country Health, River Mallee Coorong Local Health Network, indicating that we are unhappy with the answers to the questions and asking that the questions that were asked are answered as opposed to what has occurred in this document. I would note with point two, the specific question was asked was around equipment that have been by the community. So that answer is just not an answer at all. So my motion would be that we write back to country to RMCLHN, asking for the answers to the questions to be forthcoming properly, and indicating that as a council, we don't consider non-on-duty nurses to be an option.
The principal points are equipment and
Well, asking for the answers to the questions, noting that the questions as asked have not been answered properly, and indicating that the council doesn't involve nurses on duty. And Mr. Mayor, if I may just give a bit of a background
certainly
on where the community
Just-
group.
Just tidy up the motion first.
Sorry. As asked,
And your second point was around,
and stating that the council will only support an outcome that involves on-duty nurses in the health centres.
Mr. Mayor, could I just make a comment on that?
no, not yet.
Okay.
I'm happy to second that motion.
Okay, so you can see. Well, I think the full comprehensive response has supplied the questions, and I think that's covered in that, to be quite honest. What happened to the equipment was one of the original questions, and the second part is in addition, state that council will only support an outcome that involves on-duty nurses at Tintinara and Canal. Just before, councillor, just in discussions with the Mayor and Naracoorte, Lucendale briefly in Canberra, it appears that they are making more headway for Lucendale than perhaps we are here, which is a different health administration area. That's what I would say. Councillor Peach, sorry, go on.
Yes, I would just like to remark that as part of that community engagement group, we have sent a letter to RMCLHN indicating that the agreed outcomes from the last meeting were not met, which included they held a blood clinic in Canalpin and didn't advertise it and then cancelled it because nobody had booked for it. And people tried to book at the last minute. So a number of the fundamental issues with the RMCLHN haven't been addressed, and that document that went to them last week also indicates that the community group will only support an outcome that includes nurses back on duty in the towns. We have engaged with the people from Lucendale. They have been able to address a number of the safety concerns around nurses being on duty, including as simply as adding a lock to an internal door so that patients can enter the clinic, but the nurses have full control over access beyond that point. So I would say that the Lucendale community is kicking more goals than we are at the moment, but they're also providing a template for us, which is very helpful in going back and addressing some of our concerns.
Councillor Arthur, you had a question.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a couple of points about point 3. About a nurse on duty for walk-in. The clinic has never been a walk-in clinic. It's always been a appointment clinic, and their statement down, this is part due to the fact that large portion of consumers elect to have services provided in their own home. And that's the way it used to work. They would work in the clinic and do home visits. So they were both at lock the clinic when they went to the home visits, and you rang up and you made an appointment to go and see them on duty. So statement there is completely onerous, and it's completely wrong. And I think that should be pointed out that it's never been.
And I'll just note too, the other good outcome for the Lucendale community is they've had their phone reconnected. So that if a nurse is now in the Lucendale clinic and on duty, that's where the phones get answered, so that the community can actually contact somebody in the.
Okay. Councillor Roundtree, I think was the second. Do you want to speak?
Yes. I think the answers that they gave us actually raise more questions than they do give us answers. And I would actually, with the letter that goes back from council, and I don't know if this is possible, but I'd like to be able to see the letter we send back and see if there's anything else as councillors we feel that should be added to that letter when it goes back. So that we feel like our voices are being heard on this matter.
Anyone else wish to speak to this motion? On the screen behind me, councillor Qualman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I totally concur with councillor Roundtree, councillor Beach and councillor Arthur, and I had a lot of trouble with point 2. I just couldn't get my head around it. It doesn't hold water, so I totally support this motion. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Peach, you'll close.
So close, thank you.
The councillors, you can see that it's moved Councillor Peach, seconded Councillor Wright to the Country Health. There's a very long acronym there. I'll leave that. Asking for that full comprehensive responses be supplied to the questions as asked and taken on notice. State that council will only support an outcome that involves on-duty nurses at Tintinara and Canalpin Country Health Connect sites. With the motion, all those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Number 3 is done. Number 4, South Australian beach speed limits. The recommendation, councillors, that we receive and note the report. Care to move that way, or is there something else?
Mr. Mayor, I believe that we should follow this up with the minister rather than just talking to as the Kingston Council has done to the Parks and Wildlife, or whatever they call themselves now, Transport and Parks and Wildlife Services, and pointing out the situation, because, it's all right to have this here. Who's going to administer it? It's not going to be administered, but it's just, it's really an encumbrance on the people that use the beach. And there's, believe you me, a lot of our passing trade, particularly from Adelaide, that comes up there, go down to that beach. So it can affect Tailem Bend, Meningie in particular. So I believe we should be writing a letter to the minister, whoever he may be or she, regarding our objection to the introduction of reduced speed limits on the Coorong Park National Beach.
You'd like to see us write a letter to both two ministers, I would say. One in relation to national parks and wildlife, and one in terms of.
Who's a minister for that?
I don't know, but we won't name them here. That's what you would like to do, is write letters saying that we're not happy, Jan? Is it what you're saying?
Yeah.
You're moving that way?
Yes, I'll move that, Mr. Mayor.
I'd like to second that, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Certainly. See what we can get up on the screen.
The other thing I would question in this report that's been mentioned is the Kingston District Council would be up for putting the appropriate posted speed limits in. How can they do it? It's not their beach, it's the state's beach. They've got no control over the beach. They'd be required to put them up.
They might have some bits of beach which they may have control over, we don't. So you can see the motion on the screen, councillor.
Mr. Mayor, and with the mover's consent, the comment I would make as a seconder is that some of the speed limit changes were fit for purpose. I think the argument we would make is that Goolwa Beach is not the Coorong. So where it says objecting to speed limits imposed at South Australian beaches, I'd probably suggest that that's more specific to our area, that it highlights the difference between the beaches.
In the Coorong area.
Within the southeast perhaps, or, yeah,
Let's just keep it to ours, which is the Coorong National Park.
okay.
Okay, I'm happy with that. Thank you. Let's move councillor Arthur, seconded councillor Peach. We write letters to the relevant minister objecting to the speed limits imposed on South Australian beaches specific to the beaches within the Coorong National Park. Anyone want to speak for or against that?
I'd just highlight, Mr Mayor, that when the administration is considering writing this letter, that we try to contrast the situation between the activities on our beaches.
Sugars or Bashams in here?
Yeah.
Certainly. Anyone else? Councillor Maidman.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. I just have a question with the environmental impact this has. If we keep it lower, I guess it's less, isn't it? I'm just trying to remember where we sat on this. And also, is it a national park? Do we have a say anyway
Well, we
on
don't,
what they do with the speed limits?
but we can still object.
Okay.
Mr
And
Mayor,
it would be only in relation to driving on the beach, I believe.
and the beach surface resets as the tide comes up. It wouldn't be, I'm not talking here about the dunes or anything up that way. It's the front edge of the beach.
Does the usual people that drive on it realise that
Okay.
though?
Anyone else? Put the motion, all those in favour? Against? I'll put that as carried unanimously.
I don't know.
Number 5, 21-25 Community Vision Plan Midpoint Review. Recommendation, councillor Roundtree, is
Moving?
as reads.
Yes.
Any seconder? Councillor O'Hara, thank you. Councillor Roundtree, you want to add anything?
No, I think it's a good document. Yeah, and we've already been over it a few times now, so I'm happy with it.
Thank you. O'Hara, you're fine? Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a comment, if I may. I find it interesting in development of this plan took 251 participants or whatever, members from the community to get it up and running, and yet midway through we had public engagement and there was no public response, so there must be.
One way of looking at it, councillor.
Yes.
Probably a good way.
Yes.
Okay, there's no other debate around this. I'll put the motion as it reads. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Number 6, curbside waste recycling and green organic collection service policy review. There is a recommendation, councillors. Does anyone want an explanation before we enter that?
Yes. An explanation.
Yes. Yes, in what would you like explained?
Whatever you were offering.
I wasn't offering anything. I'm
You
asking
said, would you
what
like
want.
it? I said, yes.
Through the chair.
Josh, have a go at
So,
changes.
members may recall, we presented this policy at the last meeting. However, we realised that we hadn't put in a clause regarding damage bin replacements and fees for additional bins as well, which would go into the fees and charges. So the purpose of the report is just to add that clause and once adopted, include in our fees and charges.
Can I ask questions?
Certainly, councillor Arthur.
This is quite a substantial change from before. And 4.3, for example, 4.3 additional connection services. Additional collection services, consumer will be required who requires an additional waste or recycling collection services must contact the council's waste collection contractor. Details will be available on the council website, which not everybody looks at for a start. The assessment, approval, administration of the additional service will be carried out solely by the contractor. The service is provided at the absolute discretion of the contractor. Therefore, council has no control over its application nor continuance. Now, I thought the council had a contract with the waste management company to pick up all the bins, whether they be additional bins or the necessary bins. Now, we're going completely away, so we're going to have a two-tier system where your compulsory bins are going to be run by the council, and additional bins, that's going to be run by a separate agreement between the cafe owner or whatever and the contractor. I just don't think that is what council should be.
Let's just explain how that process will work, please.
Yeah, sure, through your chair. So every rateable property is entitled to a set of bins, and we're not disputing that, and that's picked up by our contractor. If a resident or a ratepayer wants an addition, it would be collected by the same contractor. It would just be that to apply for that, they would apply to the contractor directly.
Yeah, and they're going to be billed by the contractor, is that right?
Correct.
On what basis? On a weekly
On a-
basis, monthly basis, yearly basis, or what?
It's on a quarterly basis, and the fee is based on a cost recovery model.
Okay,
So
so they will now get two bills for their waste.
Yeah.
Say a business that's got extra will get one bill from the waste management company and one in his rates.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, the other thing is, what have we got it? 483. Council-owned properties and public area bins will be charged in accordance with this policy. Can you explain that?
Say what sort of bins are you referring to, councillor?
Well, it said 4.82, council-owned properties and public area bins, which is the ones we've got scattered along here, will be charged in accordance with this policy.
4.8.
So we're going to charge ourselves to pick the bins up? Or what is the story there?
Well, through the chair, there is a fee, associated fee for picking up, collecting those bins. So we pay that as part of our contract.
So I tried to look up yesterday the contract that was signed for this, but unfortunately our confidential items are still confidential. You can't look at them. I thought this contract was always based on a certain percentage of bills, like it was 2,500 bins was picked up, that's just a figure I'm pulling out. 1,800 over Christmas time might be 2,400. So are you telling me now we get charged per bin? So if they only pick up 100 bins, they only pay for 100? Or is it a set fee?
Through the chair.
The only change to the policy, as it has been for the last couple of years, councillor, through your chair, sorry, is that if a resident now wants to apply for a fourth bin, so say you've got your family coming to live with you for 3 months and you need an extra bin, you now have the facility to do that. Prior to that, our policy was silent on that. And so people would apply, but we didn't have any policy. This is to facilitate residents who need an extra bin for a period of time. Now, that period of time might be for a long time or a short time, but they have the facility now to do that, which they didn't have in the past. Nothing else has changed, councillor.
I think the other point you're trying to get to would be, does council pay for en route bins which the contractor collects for us? I think that's your question.
Well, yes.
So
Because let's not forget, out of the goodness of our heart, we pick up quite a few waste bins for DIT.
not many at this stage. So I think my answer would be the same as for the community wastewater scheme. I would imagine that we pay the same charges to pick up en route bins. I would imagine, I'd probably seek some further clarification so that the people who utilise our service and therefore the cost is averaged over it, aren't disadvantaged over the people who don't utilise the service. And I presume that also applies for people who bring their bins in from 10, 15 k's away. We're requirement of the Act. But nothing else has particularly changed around this. We still, council, collect our street bins, for want of a better word, within our towns, generally our main 4 or 5 towns, ourselves, and take them through a different process.
Maybe it's because this has changed. It's actually really looked at this policy. But the other one is 483, a waste service charge that would apply to all council properties occupied by a third party. Could we explain that one?
So if we have, like your sporting clubs, if they have a waste bin picked up by Solo, that charge would be passed on to them.
Right. Council 4.84, council may by way of resolution determine to waive a service charge to a group or organisation occupying a council property.
Correct. If
Now, as far as I know, sporting bodies have never been charged a pick-up waste service charge.
So if they ask for a waiver, that waiver is generally given because of the nature of their business, which is a not-for-profit.
So but if it's current at the present moment, they don't have to do anything. It'll be still picked up for nothing, as the case.
Nothing is changing.
Or are they going to have to apply?
Nothing is changing for anything apart from the resident who wants a additional bin over and above the
Businesses
three.
more so, businesses.
Anybody,
Or
any
anyone.
resident or any business that has 3 bins now, if they need a 4th one for whatever reason, can apply for one.
Okay.
And we have the mechanism and the appropriate fee for
Do
cost
that.
recovery, because prior to that, and a lot of councils, it happens, a lot of councils is bins are presented, they're picked up, and so if a resident has got 2, 3 additional bins, the rest of the community is paying for that waste disposal. So by having an additional bins service charge, if someone's putting more waste out there, that person is paying for it.
I realise that side of things, but it's just these other little points here. And, okay, thank you very much.
Okay,
We'll watch
Councillor
the
Peach.
house.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have no issue with the proposal regarding the cost inclusion, but the point Councillor Arthur highlighted about 4.3, which was added at the last meeting, which I unfortunately was not able to attend, I do share some concern with that one. The idea that our waste collection contractor is charging independently for a service that is offered by us, this paragraph doesn't make sense. The final paragraph says that the additional collection is a service offered by council. This is going to create a 2-tiered system where people that already have additional bins, how are they going to be captured under this?
Sorry,
There is nobody who has additional bins who would legally have an additional bin now.
Well, they have council branded bins that they have been given at some point. Industrial, cafes, however that works, I can think of plenty of examples. And most of those people that I can think of would have a legitimate reason for having that based on their business
Are they
size.
picked up now?
Yes.
Nothing will change in their life.
So then we're creating a 2-tier system where I support having the ability to request an additional bin, but why aren't council staff assessing that request? Why is Solo assessing that request?
So council offers a base level service with 3 bins.
Yes.
People want additional, they can request that Solo do that, assume that Solo agree, they pay Solo direct. It separates council's administration. The waste collection service fee, $337, would be a charge upon the land. I'm looking at my people, whereas the additional service would be just an additional service and therefore not a charge upon the land. So there's different systems in place anyway between the standard bin collection and an additional one. This
So
simply
this
moves the
section of the-
additional to the contractor.
This section of the document says that that service is offered by us and it's in our fees and charges. So why are we delegating? It's what the final paragraph says here.
For you,
So-
Mayor, it's the other way around, councillor. The council offers the service, so we offer the residents a facility where they can apply for another bin. Solo are doing the administration work for that. So
why
I
is it
can't
being?
imagine anybody being knocked back for that service, if that's what your concern is. I'm not quite sure what your concern is.
My concern is that the assessment and approval of it is being handled by the independent contractor. And it's our service.
If they were to knock back somebody, and I can't even imagine when they would do that, they would come and talk to us because most of the requests will come direct through council anyway. It'll be a toing and froing affair. We thought it would be easier from an administration point of view that they did the legwork, which is the intention, rather than our council staff, because it's easier. They're the ones who pick them up. They're the ones who deliver them. The charges were set by us in consultation with them. So all of the framework around it has been council in consultation with Solo working out what is the easiest process to get residents who want another bin in a seamless way.
So for those existing residents and businesses that have multiple bins, so how is that?
So that,
Right, that's not quite correct. So,
oh, sorry.
yeah, so if there are additional bins out there, I'll call them illegal bins, if this policy is adopted, then Solo will notify those ratepayers that they've got additional bins, and now council has introduced a service charge for that. They'll then be given the option to take up the additional bin, complete the application and take up the service, or if they choose not to, the bin will then be collected by Solo.
Okay, well, I won't be supporting it at this stage, Mr Mayor, because I don't think enough work's been done. If the residents again, there's a lot of people with additional bins, and if we go and say you've got an illegal bin and it's branded with the council brand, they've had it legitimately, it's going to go down like a lead balloon.
With the chair, for those businesses and ratepayers that got additional bins, the rest of the community is subsidising that waste collection for them. So there's always got to be a point in time where there's a line in the sand to say, okay, waste is not getting any cheaper to dispose of. This is a way that if some ratepayers or businesses are using more than the allocation through the service charge, that they should pay for it.
So the question I would ask is, given that those bins are branded council bins that have been given out at some point in time, I'd like to have a better understanding of how they were given out in the first place and what the framework was around that before we go and change it.
I have no history of any of that. We will have to take that on notice. And we'll even do an audit of how many. I'm not sure how we'll do that, but we will.
Through you, Mayor, that's actually quite important to understand that, because you're right, this will go down like a lead balloon. But in our wanting to be able to provide ratepayers with the ability to have an extra bin, we've inadvertently, through the process, now create ourselves a bigger problem that needs resolving.
Well, the question would be if and when and how additional bins were put out there with no additional charging process.
I think we need to
That's sorry, councillor, yeah, and that's my problem. In the last 5 years, to my knowledge, we haven't done that. That's my question. So I don't know when and what additional, I presume we're talking about putrescible red lead bins here, were issued under what process and
Well,
what?
additional bins were charged at the, and I thought this was stupid, but an additional bin, a red bin was charged at the rate of the 3 bins. If you had extra, and it was supposed to be paid on your rates. But we never had a decent system of checking.
Right.
Most councils, every financial year, when the first rate is, they give them a tag, which they put on the bin. Bin hasn't got a tag, it doesn't get picked. And that's the way it's done. The other thing is,
Sorry, Mick, I'll be with you in a minute.
the other thing is in the new charges here, we've got additional red bin. Okay, it's $200. Is that $200 for the year? Annual charge? Or is it a pickup charge? You know, like say a fella might have 3 bins one day and 1 the next, or 1 week. Yeah.
What page are you looking
What
at?
page you on,
councillor?
councillor?
Of the,
These are charges.
or where are we? I don't know. Page 8 of that, or not, page 95 on the additional curbside rate connection fees.
That, through the chair, that's an annual fee.
It'll be an annual fee, councillor.
But to clarify, it's not on the number of pickups. That's the annual fee for you to put that bin out. If you don't put it out,
Yeah,
you won't get
realise
a
it's not
credit.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but say for example, a fella one time might have 3 bins, then he has none, then he has 1.
Yeah. Well, through the chair, the technology is not there to be able to say that your service charge entitles you to X number of collections per year, and there's a running tally of, so you put 2 bins out one week, you don't put any out the next week. We're not there yet. It is, you put your bin out on the collection day. If you don't put the bin out, they won't collect it, but it doesn't give you a credit for.
You must have some technology, because if you come along to my place and I've got 2 bins out, you're going to click something. It's going to make sure I have to pay or not pick it up.
Yeah, through the chair, the Solo have got technology on board where they know they have additional bins to the property, and if there's no additional bin tag on it, they won't collect the additional bin, and that's what they've done with other councils that they service.
Now, also as part of this, no, it's all right. It's all part and parcel, Paul. Mr. Mayor, sorry.
No, you've snuck in as a councillor.
All those people that have been given extra bins, those businesses by the council, as a motion of council, in lieu of their green bin, which they don't need, will they still be entitled to those 2 red bins free of charge?
So, councillor, we're now moving into an area where I think we're looking pretty soon for a motion for further research on this, because policies don't say that at the moment. Now, if the understandings say that, I want to know how we had understandings become policy over the years. That will be the problem here. Whether we had some people who were more flexible in how we applied the policy than others, that's fine. But pretty soon, in fact, right now, I think we're going to have to do a little bit more work on this before we adopt this policy. And is there any downside in that? I'm looking. But Councillor O'Hara he's had his oxygen cut off about 25 minutes ago by you,
That's all right.
councillor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I sort of agree with Councillor Arthur to a degree, but I think about 18 months ago we spoke about giving everyone a new red bin. And I think the answer to this is exactly that. We give people a new red bin with a electronic tag on it. Now, if you want another one, then you buy the other bin as well, and you pay the fee, and you get a tag on that. And I mean, that fixes the whole problem. I mean, from what I'm understanding here, I know one place down at Meninga's got 4 red bins, so he's only paying for 1.
Through the chair.
Shouldn't be.
So
Under the old system, he shouldn't be.
Well, once again, sorry,
Yeah.
I don't know what validity the old system has got. That's my problem.
Well,
Right, so Josh.
How the
No,
old
no,
system
go
was
for it.
administered.
well, yeah,
Get
so
the gavel on a second if I get my pen.
a couple of things. Firstly, I'm not sure, like as the mayor has alluded to, when the additional bins, or not sure when that is, but at the moment, the solid waste levy isn't going down. It's continuing to go up. So the cost for additional bins will continue to, in terms of disposal of landfill, it's going to continue to go up. It's $161 a tonne at the moment. It won't be going down. In terms of, it'll be very easy for Solo for our contractor to determine additional bins, because as they're presented, they'll make notes saying property A has got 3 red bins, they should only have 1. Collate, and more likely than not, they'll already have that register. So in terms of rolling out who's got additional bins, it would be letters to those residents saying, we've noted through a recent audit, we've got 2 additional bins. Here is the process for formalising an agreement for those additional bins. There'll be a grace period, and then if it's not taken up, those bins will be removed.
Councillors, there's 2 parts to where we're at. I'll come with you in a minute. If we don't adopt something today, no one can have a second bin and pay for it. That's the first part of it, what I can read, which is point 2.
We adopted that last month. Maybe
Point 2.
But we didn't have the fees and charges.
Right, we have adopted it.
I think just
So
confirm-
it appears that you as a group would like more work done on
Yes,
who, when, what, why, how. I'm well aware, and Councillor O'Hara's right, about 18 months ago, we had a broad discussion around at that stage, several crack bins, and whether we should replace, council should pay to replace the weekly putrescible red lid bin. I think I was a councillor, I might have been around at the time. I always understood that to be owned by the property owner, not council. It appears over the years that had been watered down. I'm wondering, I'm looking at the staff, is there any requirement for us to adopt this at all? Dave?
No.
None. Do we take it that, that we do a bit more work around understandings and additional bins and
Mr Mayor, if I
various
may,
pieces?
what's actually being proposed in today's document, I don't think anybody's got an issue with. I think what we've highlighted is there's some concerns about what was passed at the last meeting that needs further exploring. All that's actually in today's document is regarding the cost for the bin replacement and being free if it's stolen. So I would like to move that we do adopt as amended, but note concerns regarding it's moved to the last meeting and request more work by the administration on it.
You're going to move 1 and 2 as an
So
additional point.
that would have the effect of giving a cost base for replacing of a bin, which I don't think anybody's got an issue with, the $65 and the $70. Nobody's mentioned that today. I think what we've highlighted is the additional bin policy aspect, which was added at the last meeting. So if we adopt it as written, but note concerns with the implementation of the additional bin
Seek further report.
and seek further clarification. And I would just note too, like in the fees and charges, there's an additional organics waste bin for rural. Under our current policy, we don't allow rural residents to have a green bin. It's not included. We passed that in the last update last year after I asked the question. So there's a few things here I think that need some tidying up. So as somebody that uses the bin bank, we have a yellow bin and a red bin. We're not permitted to have a green bin because I think the theory was being on a farm, we can deal with it. So that's in the current.
A different charge for that then?
No. But bearing in mind the bin banks in our instance, because we travel further than 4 or 5 kilometres are free to use. So I just think there's some more work here around some of the detail.
If you're happy with point 1 and 2, I'm still on the subject. I just need you to word up point 3 around what you really want.
And noting concern by elected members around additional bin policy and implementation, request administration come back with a further report.
About what?
The historical basis of how some of those bins were allocated and how we intend to implement the policy going forward so that we can at least as elected members consider it.
Our additional bins were historically allocated.
Quantum.
And charged for. I think and charged was fine.
And charge, yeah.
I think that's what you need to do as a report.
Yep. And how we propose to implement the change.
Let's work out how we charge for it first.
Yep.
What you have had is, in addition, last year before, in the act of people over 5 kilometres get the bins free. So I would need to understand at some stage, our contractor probably gets paid for picking up those bins. Who pays for that? And so there are several exemptions, additions and variances.
And Mr Mayor,
we need to understand in the contract.
as somebody that benefits from that exemption in the Act, I would still be prepared to pay for that service because it is something that we value greatly, being able to do that.
Yep. Yeah, I understand that and I do myself. I think we've got enough to work with. I think with a bit of work with the director here, we'll get to find where all the variances are against the standard. I think is probably what we're trying to find out here. It's been we did discuss it 15 months ago and we haven't really tackled it since. Okay, I've got a mover for that motion. Being Councillor Peach, there's Councillor O'Hara. You'll see. Thank you.
Excuse me.
Is there anyone else wishes? Now we're in debate, councillors. We're not in questions.
Just one question, clarification here. You're adopting the policy as is, and then you're going to ask it to be revised. So why adopt it? Why can't we just do point 2, adopt the schedule of fees and charges, which we probably need to do now to get things ready for September, and make point 3 number 2, investigate the rest of the curbside collection and that before we.
If I may, Mr Mayor, the reason I've suggested doing it in that manner, through you, Mr Mayor, is that the issue that we have is already in the document from the last meeting. It was already adopted. So what was being proposed to be added to the document today is simply the addition of 4.5. And I don't believe any of the councillors had an issue with 4.5. It was
Anyone else game to enter the debate? There is no one else. The beats you get to close.
closed, Mr Mayor.
So councillors are aware that this now adds a third point. That note concerns around additional curbside collection service and requests that a further report be provided regarding how additional bins were historically allocated and charged for. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 7, grant of lease to the Quad Riders Association of South Australia.
I'll move that way, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Arthur's moved. There a seconder? Councillor Roundtree is the seconder. Any statement, councillors, around?
I think it's pretty straightforward.
Straightforward?
Through you, Mr Mayor, can I just ask,
Yes.
how does that relate to what we talked about earlier today? When you said that that was council land that might, may be able to sell one day?
Through you, Chair, that's the reason we put a 5+5, because we know that probably nothing will happen within the next 5 years, but it gives some flexibility to council if something changes. So that's why the 5.5 and not the standard 21-year lease that we do for most
There's
things.
21, yeah.
Miles, do you want to add? No, that's the answer, councillor. Councillor Qualman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Question, please. On the second page of the report, special conditions will be placed on the lease as it has applied in the past, ensuring that the property is only used during certain times and not when the gun club is in use. Further conditions relating to the use of safety equipment and the like will also be included in the lease agreement. Can someone enlighten me about that, or is it worked?
Miles May, yeah.
Please.
Through you, Your Worship, the site is essentially shared. Riders and the Meningie Gun Club, and obviously they're two activities that you wouldn't want to see happening at the same time. So there's an arrangement in place, and that's reflected in the lease. And just to mention too, the gun club lease also will be coming to council in future too.
As you'd understand, councillor, that if you're quad riding and someone's playing target shooting, you wouldn't want to be mistaken.
Get extra points.
Don't know if you get extra points.
Name's Trump.
But that's already in the existing,
Mr.
already
Mayor.
in the existing arrangements.
Yeah, I was just worried someone just rolls up,
Yeah. Well, that's why it's already set up quite well.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Only get shot once.
Righto, number 7, the recommend, it is that, councillors, it is as the recommendation reads. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Number 8 will be just seat of the Tintinara War Memorial Hall Committee minutes. Someone move that way, please.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to move that
And yes,
that we endorse the recommendation regarding replacing the canvas window awnings.
I think it might already be a CRM in
Yes.
place, so we don't have to really endorse that, note it on verbal. Is there a seconder? Councillor Roundtree? But yes, there's noted in the report.
Just hope, Mr Mayor, since that meeting that the one of the canvas awnings is actually torn through.
Yeah.
So it's probably a little bit was at the time.
Sure that we've picked that up in the process. Anyone else?
Mr Mayor, can I just make one comment? We have a system of checking that before by the night of the dance, huge crowd with the dance final, whatever it was. I got a telephone call looking for toilet paper, which I was able to help them out because there was no toilet paper in the toilets.
Right. Certainly. No worries. Okay, all those in favour? Carried unanimously. Eleven one, information reports. Someone move that way, please. Councillors Qualman. For a seconder. Councillor Peach, any questions in the CEO's report? Councillor Roundtree.
Just, I have three on the meetings attended, just want some more information. So I think you might have already discussed the first one, which is the 12th of June, meeting with DIT CEO regarding the Mallee Highway and Transport Route discussion.
That's the one the mayor, through you, Mayor.
Yes.
That, the Director of Roads and
Okay.
Infrastructure, the Mayor and I met about the Mallee Highway and the possibility of switching some of the works on some of the intersections to the ones that we'd identified earlier. That was the predominant, and the safety around the Dukes Highway were the two issues.
And several other subjects. And might I just add that the director and Andy Exley, Second IC, I won't call Andy, have been very open and forthright with us.
Thank you. 19th of June, the Meningie Area School Community Library Project. Is that the library project that we're looking at funding, or is that a different project?
That's a library project that's underway, yes.
So what was the discussion?
So that preliminary still, and I had a discussion with the Education Department as well. We are still working through what the council component of the community library might look like. And I think we had some really serious concerns that the Education Department hadn't come back to us to confirm any drawings that were done over 12 months ago now. So we've raised that with them. They've gone back to have a look at it. So it's a bit of toing and froing at this stage. It are the contractors of the building, and the Education Department are the owners of the building. And so it's in early days. The community consultation that happened down there was really only about landscaping. I think it went a little bit pear-shaped in terms of community and what was expected. But my conversation with the principal is around how does she see our involvement with the Education Department, which has been, to be frank, has been a little difficult to engage with at this point in time. But we had a meeting with them last week or the week before, and they've undertaken to come back to us with some.
Was there any
further-
discussion about costs? Of
Not
what
at this
council's
stage yet.
costs
We
would
haven't,
be?
no, and we brought to their attention that any discussion about costs sit outside the current MOUs around community libraries, and that has to be a separate discussion. We are not near that stage yet.
Okay, thank you. My last question was the 24th of June, early childhood education and care discussions with the District Council of Cleve.
Through you, Mayor. So we're looking, Kelly has done some work just around the shortage of childcare and how it will impact on economic growth across the district. And we know from that research that there are significant shortages across the major towns in our district. We've been having discussions with all the councils on the York and Eyre Peninsulas, because they have already got some frameworks and models in place that we just really wanted to learn from what they were doing. And on the back of that, the Mayor and I also met with the Chief of Staff of Minister Ali, who is the Minister for Early Childhood, around what may be the options of an integrated model in a place like Tailem Bend, where in the school itself, there's been some space left because of Year 7 leaving, and that with the move from this state department government to Year 3s in kindergarten, there are some options for some integrated model from birth to when children go into prep at one spot. So it's just, we're in that fact-finding stage, looking at models across the state, talking with the childcare minister. The trick with this one is that the state looks after education from kindergarten and reception through, and the Commonwealth looks after early childhood care for babies to whenever they enter the education system. So it's a little tricky, but we're really just trying to look at models that we might facilitate some interest in third parties across the.
So I'd emphasise we did meet with the Minister's Chief Advisor in Canberra. The councils in the mid-upper north Eyre Peninsula are a bit further down the path here around a process of engaging in what are deserts of no childcare, and we're in no different position to that. So we'll probably work off of their template a bit, and that's what we're working towards.
Thank you.
Other questions in the CEO's report?
Just if there's no one else, I'd just like to ask once more. So the question taken on notice regarding the RAA charging is
There's an answer in the,
Yeah, I see the answer. Is that what we all understood was the case? Like, I felt it was a bit of a surprise for myself, but does everyone else, my fellow councillors, feel they understood that that was the answer about the costs? I felt
to
that
be
the
fair to say,
RAA
there's been considerable rumours in the community about what it'd be. I think that's outlined it. It's not free. That's the simple answer.
Was there a
Which
discussion?
page, sorry?
It's
In
the
responses,
number 8, questions
66.
taken on notice.
The land we gave us.
There's a response to councillor Hara's question
around the
about the
cost.
costs of what it would be.
So a high flow pump, you'll pay more for. That's the long and the short. You want to sit there for a fair bit of time, you will pay less per kilowatt hour. If you want it zoomed in quick, you'll pay more.
What do they consider quick?
Well, if there's three, in the answers, I'm not going to try and remember it. There's a low and a high charge rate.
It says a time in there, it just doesn't say
Yeah.
how long. Is that 20 minutes is quick?
I know how long will it
4
take?
hours is
Depends if
slow?
your tank's empty.
Sorry?
I
On
would
the
thought
voting
20
card,
minutes would
yeah.
be fast charge,
20 minutes is a fast charge? What would be a slow charge?
a couple of hours.
Wow.
It is also dependent on the type of car too, isn't it?
It is, but also, you know, slow charge in a country town means that you go up to the pub and have a meal.
Not if the pub's not open, it doesn't. Not if the cafe's not open, not if there's no services in the
Can't
town.
help that. Might attract some people.
Through you, Mr Mayor, there must be a system though that tells the monitor when the car's fully charged. Because if you
There
read the
is.
RAA, it says after your car is fully charged, you've got 15 minutes to shift the car.
That's
If
right.
you don't shift it, then you get charged per minute after that.
Correct.
So
How
there
much a
must be
parking near the pub, Mick, eh?
you get a couple of schooners in there.
You'd have to be checking it, otherwise you're going to get a fine.
I
We got
mean,
15 minutes after.
I would imagine there's probably an app also that as long as you've got their mobile phone with you, you can also check how your
Yeah.
car's charging.
Okay.
I think there's an element of suck it and see, but I think we've got Canalpin, it says in the report live. And so let's see how it goes.
This was the first time I'd ever seen numbers
I know.
presented in any way. I felt like it was a bit of an abyss of information, and I thank councillor O'Hara for asking the question, because I don't think we've ever had that detail presented to us
I
before.
would be quite blunt in thinking the RAA haven't been exactly forthcoming in this subject.
No, so I found that quite alarming.
I think the RAA led us to believe that it was going to be free of charge.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I
100%.
think that was definitely the vibe that was going out about that. Nowhere did it say that's more expensive than electricity that you get at home.
Well, let's just see
Hugely
how
more
it goes.
expensive.
See how it goes. You had
They're making
anything?
a good profit out of this and we're not getting any money out of it.
Hang on. I said it was a commercial enterprise
Oh, you
and
did?
everyone said
No.
it wasn't.
No, you were right. It is a commercial enterprise.
Okay, any more questions around the CEO's report? Councillor Quam.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's just a comment actually regarding the Tarlin Bend Cemetery Group on the wonderful work they've done in working with council on a council asset, being their cemetery and the entrance gates on there off of Granite's Road, and I see some nice photos, and I've heard a lot of positive feedback from the community of how much improvement to the entrance of the cemetery now looks. So well done to all those involved.
Certainly accredit our volunteer groups to all of our community spaces.
Yes. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? There's a motion somewhere here, moved by councillor Quam, councillor Peach. We endorse that report. Stephen, note that report. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. I move to number 11.2, Community and Corporate Information Report. Council receive and note the report. Someone move that way. Councillor Roundtree and O'Hara. Questions?
No, don't have any.
Me either.
There's no questions. Put the motion.
I just note
Couldn't be that quick, could I?
under the 41 that the request from the committee was warnings to be replaced in red, and that hasn't been noted.
It's in red.
The
awnings.
recommendation from the committee was for red awnings to be replaced, and I'm just
The new ones to be in.
That was noted in the CRM to the works guys.
thank you.
Worried about the red. They were green, I think, previously, weren't they?
I would say they're a very dim colour of grey at the moment.
And we're agreeing that.
Not something I'm personally invested in, but
Well-
it was part of the motion.
Anyone else with questions of serious administrative process? Okay, there's none. For the motion, all those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Number 3 will be roads and infrastructure information report. Someone move that way, please. Receive councillor Qualman. Is there a seconder? Councillor Roundtree, any questions? Any at all, councillors? Can I ask a question? I'll ask one first. Just, I note here, we've got a little bit of roadside rubbish around Tailem Bend. Is that a bit of an increase or a bit of a spike or not?
Through the chair, yeah, we've had a little bit of a spike in the last reporting period.
Councillor Qualman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I see, reading the report about the EV charging stations, one's open, it looks like Menengi's nearly there. How's Tailem Bend one going, please? Thank you.
Through the chair, I'll have to take that on notice, councillor Qualman. I haven't had an update.
Okay.
And Joel's on leave at the moment, so.
Yeah, it was just a question. Yeah, understand.
My
Thank you.
observation, councillors will receive 2 new Stabby poles as well there. Keep going. That'll take, that means Sappen's more involved.
Oh, well, that's
They
probably.
look like stills for Stabby poles to me.
Mr Mayor, that's probably why it's
Could be a delay.
not happening straight away. Yeah.
Joys of working with many authorities.
And through the chair, just in terms of the EV charging for RAA, you got to download an app to be able to access the charging, and that'll have a reminder when you're when it's charged, and then you've got your 15-minute window to get back to your vehicle.
Looks like I won't be using an EV charger.
Two questions for me, Mr Mayor. So just confirming that we're happy with the final location of the Menengi RAA site, that's all been.
I understand that it was when it was recited or was cited to the correct position that we
Yes.
agreed to originally.
And it's in the correct position now.
Oh, that's fantastic. And other question through you, Mr Mayor. Has there been any further update on the Colbatch phone tower since my last question?
You may, I asked Tracy the other day and she was back to Telstra. Telstra come back and said they're still waiting for Sappen, so we have no short answer.
Got a common thread of issues here, councillors. You can talk about different government quasi-authorities and their speed of hooking things up.
Through you, Mayor, Kim just whispered to me that while I was away, Sappen did ring. They're waiting for electricians.
Aren't they, electricians? Any other questions that we might better answer, councillor? Councillor Maidman.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, could we just have a brief history of the Mallee Lights project? Because that's when I was on council, please.
Who wants to give that? Would that Josh give it? 'Cause
Said
he'll give us
brief.
a brief, that's why.
I actually don't know.
I can start it, and I'm sure councillor Peach or councillor Arthur will fill in the details. It was a piece of asset that was, my understanding before I started, that was donated or acquired, I'm not sure how, to one of the service clubs in Tintinara with the intention of setting it up. When the setting up started, the refurbishment of it indicated that there were several shortcomings with the actual equipment. One of them was, I think when the group took it, they thought it was solar powered. That turned out not to be the case, which meant that it had to be then set up where it was some power. Probably 12 months after I came, we came to an agreement that council would do some of the work as well, although it was never our asset. And then it's been backwards and forwards with the group in Tintinara doing the refurbishment to the point now where I think it's quite probably almost the equipment, and we're just waiting for the lights. So that's in a nutshell. Councillor Peach or Councillor Arthur can add to that, but that's my understanding.
Thank you.
And we might add that the community has just thrown $12,000 in to finish the job off.
So is
So
it
the-
finished?
It's not quite finished through you, Mr. Mayor. The lights still need to go in. The original tops were very dilapidated fiberglass solar panels that look pretty ordinary. So the Action Club took it on themselves essentially to upgrade the tops to dark green, the John Deere green, discs, which now have laser cut star constellations in them. So kids
Nice.
can go underneath and the names of the constellation and their patterns there. So there's sort of a double feature to it now. They've been sent to Adelaide and powder coated. And as Councillor Arthur just mentioned, there's been $12,000 recently donated by 3 service clubs in Tiddy to finalise it, and a lot of volunteer hours from Traeger Built Services to get it finished. So almost there.
Lovely, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Being none, council receive and note the report. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Right, we move on to questions with notice. I have none. Questions without notice, councillors?
Mr Mayor,
Question.
yes, I've got a couple. I move the report.
No, it's questions.
Yeah, this is why the report, I've got to tell you what the report is, so I can ask where it's at.
Not- with motions without notice, not with questions without
No,
notice.
it's already been passed by council. This has been in the minutes and passed. I want to know why it's not on the action list.
What is it?
Ask the report be prepared for the new work zone traffic management signage rules. Now will affect the efficiency of grading, patrol
So
grading.
councillor,
Chief Executive Officer advised that a briefing will take place first and then a report to council will be prepared for an advocacy point of view. That was a meeting on March the 5th. Why is there no?
yours is a question, and I'm going to let the CEO answer it.
So prior to that report coming to council, we are having a briefing with you around that very issue prior to report. And if I'm looking at Ash or Josh about when that's set down for, but that work, August.
The briefing coming as soon as we are fully across the requirements in this area.
Okay.
That's the answer to your question.
Well, my question is, why isn't it on the action list? It's an action list.
Got a minute number?
It hasn't got an action, hasn't got a number
Yeah.
on the action list, that's why.
Might be.
It was moved in the Infrastructure and Assets Committee meeting, which the minutes then go to council, which are accepted. So they should be.
The actions don't usually get pulled across from one committee to another. So they would still appear on the Roads and Infrastructure Committee action list.
It's not on there. Where have we got? There's nothing on that one, is there? Can't find it.
Sure, councillor. Nonetheless, we're having a briefing very soon. Then we'll know.
Then the other question.
Your second question.
Yeah, the second question is regarding the report that was going to be tabled in February, regarding comments made by the auditor regarding the council's not running with the long-term financial plan and the unsealed roads programs and all being underspent in budget. I asked request an explanation of the road delivery against the adopted budget and long-term financial plan. Acting Director of Roads and Infrastructure advised council must update all asset management plans before accurate figures can be reported. Reports will be tabled with council in February 24. That is not on the action list and has never been.
Not on the action list. There was that in a Roads and Infrastructure meeting.
That was in the rain and those minutes have been accepted by the council.
Take it on notice, councillor. It's an R&I. There's an audit and risk retention. Okay.
You'll follow up, sir.
If an action is required out of a committee meeting, is that naturally fall over to a report in the ordinary monthly meeting? Well, my governance question, and I'll have a discussion with the governance officer. She might give you an answer in the shorter term. Try.
Through the mayor, if you're putting up a recommendation to council that's come out of the committee, then that action would be captured on the council minute action list. If it's just the minutes that you're accepting from the committee, then that committee has its own action list and they don't automatically come across.
There you go. Okay. I'm still in questions without notice.
Follow up.
Have no more. Move to motions with notice. I have nil. Motions without notice. Councillors?
Yep.
You're gonna.
I have one.
You're gonna put that one to me.
Yep.
I'm gonna allow you to say what you want to say, and then I'm gonna tell you what my answer is gonna be anyway.
That the council provide a report on the changing the start times for council meetings from 3 o'clock
To 3 o'clock.
to 3 o'clock, and it be presented to the next meeting. Next council meeting, sorry.
So, councillors, discussion with the deputy mayor. I've said I couldn't accept a motion to change the meeting time today as a motion without notice. But in council seeking a report on changing the meeting time to 3 o'clock instead of what is always for a long time now 5 o'clock in this organisation, I'll accept your motion.
Thank you.
How do we go, Ash? Potential to change. I think that's all it requires, to be quite honest. Well, yes.
Regarding the potential.
So, councillor, sorry, I did speak to the deputy mayor that it might be that we've already advertised meetings for, for a period ahead at a certain time already. There might be a statutory requirement we can't change quickly. There might be any number of things which will be in a report. Nonetheless, there's no harm in providing a report to us on that, but for the next meeting.
What's the first process?
Look, all right, Mr. Pretty bad, yeah.
Through the mayor, if you do make any changes, then we would just need to, I think we have to note that in the Government Gazette if there's any changes to the meeting start time.
So, councillors, anything like this needs some forewarning and process. That's my point. I've got a seconder for his motion. Councillor O'Hara.
Why didn't I think of it 2 years ago?
Well, you two eventually will agree. Yeah, so you want to speak to his, or is it 7 o'clock closing or something?
Well, yeah, I do. I mean, I thought of it last week going home from council meeting last month, and it was raining, it was dark, and I thought someone like poor old Tank, he's not that old, but he's going home on that Dukes Highway, 2,000 trucks passing him at 9 o'clock at night in the rain. Not a lot of sense in it, I don't think.
No. Well, one thing just off the channel is I'd always be really pleased if it was raining, given the current seasonal conditions. And
Be a lot nicer at 3 o'clock though than 4.
but nonetheless, so councillors, moved Councillor Arthur, seconded Councillor O'Hara that a report be provided regarding the potential to change ordinary council meeting commencement times to 3 p.m. and that report come to the August 24 ordinary council meeting. Is everyone aware of that? I'll open it for debate. Councillor Peach.
I'd like to speak against the motion, Mr Mayor. I do understand why it's been put and I do sympathise with it, but working full time, having early meetings scheduled, which may further impact our workshop times, I would much rather drive home late at night, and I know that's specific to me, but I do live the furthest from the council chambers, and yes, it's not something I can support going forward, so I thought I might as well vote against it now, but I do understand the
You
position.
do that, that's fine. We're not the only council with councillors that have to travel extremely long distances, but we probably are one of the best examples of the difficulties of rural councils. Anyone else wish to speak for or against it? Asking for a report, councillors, that's all I was asking for. All those in favour? Those against? It's carried 5 councillors for, One against, which would be councillor Peaches, the councillor against it, but it's carried. Other councillors are all voting for it. Any other motions without notice, councillors? Try me. Mike didn't pick that up, councillor, luckily. One thing we did see in in Canberra was some very good microphone systems for councillors and recording. Did you look at that, Tent? And how the mayor had the power to mute people, which I fully disagree with. You should be fully responsible for what you say. Anyway, minute action list, item 14. Don't rush me. I'm going to take it there is no minute action list. Number 15, confidential items. Ashley, do you want to add anything to this process at the moment? We just go into a conference. Go in, righto. Thank you.
Just noting that that report was revised. If I sent you out an amended agenda.
Is an amended report. But nonetheless, for those watching the live stream, please be advised the meeting is about to move into confidence and the live stream will stop. Those who wish to view the end of the meeting, the video will be available on YouTube after today's meeting.